Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We're diving into a source that asks us to look at something intimately familiar, yet somehow entirely unspoken. We're exploring the female condition. But right off the bat, I need you to know this isn't some dry, standard sociological study. Oh no, the authors of this guide frame everyday life as an intense, atmospheric, psychological thriller. So, take a second. Imagine the world around you right now. The brightly lit offices, those quiet suburban streets, bustling school hallways. Now, I want you to look closer, because underneath that totally mundane surface, there's a hidden ecosystem operating with a very rigid, very cold set of rules. We are literally going to look at everyday life through a lens that reveals the subtle, creeping horror of a survival thriller.
I want you to genuinely ask yourself a question. What if just existing was a high-stakes survival game? Imagine shifting your perspective so completely that totally normal everyday routines are suddenly revealed as calculated maneuvers just to stay safe. In most survival games, you get dropped into a wilderness and told to fend for yourself, right? But the source material we're looking at today suggests something way more terrifying. It argues that for half the population, the wilderness isn't a forest or a desert. The wilderness is the world itself. It's literally every room you walk into, every sidewalk you cross, every single social interaction you navigate. It's a game where the rules are completely invisible, but the stakes are your physical safety and your psychological well-being.
Our source frames this reality absolutely perfectly. Just listen to this quote. You open your eyes to a world that has already decided exactly what you should look like, how you should sound, and how much space you are allowed to take up. Wow, it's just a profoundly visceral thought, isn't it? I mean, imagine a newborn opening her eyes in a cold, bright hospital room. Long before she can speak, let alone walk, these invisible social expectations are already wrapping around her. The world has literally already determined her parameters. And spoiler alert, the space she is actually allowed to take up, it's really not much. It's like this slow shrinking of the self, all while the heavy expectations of the world just grow larger and larger.
Okay, let's dive into this timeline mapped out by our source. And you'll notice pretty quickly, these aren't your standard happy societal milestones like graduation or landing a first job. No, what we're looking at is an escalating series of survival stages. We kick things off with camouflage in the first decade, move right into social warfare during middle school, escalate to predator evasion in late adolescence, transition into the juggling act during those prime adult years, and then finally, we end up in invisibility. It treats the human lifespan exactly like a harrowing nature documentary. You're not just growing up, you're actively adapting to survive an ecosystem that never stops shifting its threats. So let's break these stages down.
Part 1. Camouflage and social warfare. The early years.
So, we start in the earliest stages of life. And it's in these supposedly safe, brightly colored classrooms and playgrounds where the hidden rules of the ecosystem are first learned. And the very first strategy? Camouflage. This is the early childhood survival strategy of being quiet, accommodating, and agreeable to avoid drawing negative attention. It is fascinating and honestly deeply unsettling just how quickly little girls learn to minimize themselves. Think about a young girl sitting quietly in a loud classroom. She carefully watches the adults. She sees how the louder kids dominate the room, and she instinctively just lowers her hand. She puts on that fake smile during uncomfortable interactions. It's literally like a chameleon, slowly changing colors to blend into the shadows. She learns that safety means blending in, not being a problem, and taking up as little space as physically possible.
And that brings us to the absolutely brutal transition into middle school. The source material draws this incredibly direct parallel between the chaotic, fluorescent-lit hallways of youth and the ruthless reality of young birds fighting for survival in a nest. It is a harsh lesson where girls tear each other down for social status through savage, unprovoked attacks. It is sheer psychological warfare. A whispered comment, a hostile glare across the cafeteria, the total emotional isolation of eating lunch by yourself. It perfectly mimics the aggressive survival instincts of nature, where the weak get pushed to the very edge of the nest. You are thrust into a chaotic environment where you have to learn to defend yourself against your own peers.
Part 2. The predator ecosystem. Adolescence. Now, the true turning point in our explainer happens right here. The world expands, and this everyday documentary takes a terrifying turn into predator evasion. This is defined as the constant state of vigilance developed when you realize predators are hiding absolutely everywhere. As a teenager, that newfound freedom is instantly overshadowed by danger. Just imagine the sheer, unrelenting exhaustion of that constant awareness. It's the psychological equivalent of a deer nervously scanning a dark, quiet forest, knowing full well that unseen predators are moving in the shadows. The danger is no longer just a mean comment in a school hallway. No, the danger is out on the streets, at the bus stops, in the empty parking lots. It's that jarring realization that simply existing in public makes you a target.
This evasion turns into a chilling step-by-step reality. Step 1. Hold your keys tightly between your fingers. Step 2. Constantly scan your environment. Step 3. Never walk alone at night. And guys, these aren't just polite suggestions, they are mandatory, everyday procedures just to get home safely. Imagine walking down a rain-soaked pavement at night. Streetlights flickering above you. You're holding your car keys like makeshift claws. You're constantly looking over your shoulder at shadowy figures in the distance. Your breathing is fast. Your heart is just pounding. But this terrifying teenage reality becomes completely normalized. It literally becomes muscle memory. It's a lifelong defensive posture that gets locked in before you even graduate high school.
Part 3. The Impossible Juggling Act. The Prime Adult Years.
As we move into the prime adult years, the survival mechanics shift again. We go from physical evasion in the dark to this intense psychological pressure hitting you right in the bright light of day. You get caught in an impossible juggling act. You are fully expected to hunt, meaning building a career and securing resources in the corporate world, while simultaneously maintaining the nest with endless patience, which means handling childcare and rearing the young. The sheer exhaustion really builds up as society ruthlessly demands absolute perfection in both of these domains at the exact same time. Just picture a laptop open late at night right next to a crying baby. It's the overwhelming noise and movement of endless notifications and expectations just piling up. The psychological tension here comes from the frankly impossible nature of doing both of these things flawlessly.
Listen to how the source describes the penalty for failing this impossible act. Quote, "Society judges you ruthlessly no matter which you prioritize, much like a swarm of wasps attacking a threat." That metaphor of a wasp swarm, it is incredibly powerful. You can practically feel that inescapable, buzzing judgment closing in from all sides. If you prioritize hunting, the swarm attacks you for abandoning the nest. But if you prioritize the nest, the swarm attacks you for failing to hunt. It's this slow-motion psychological tension where you are standing completely still, totally exhausted, while aggressive judgment just circles you endlessly. There really is no winning the game. There is only surviving the swarm.
Part 4. Fading into Invisibility. The Decline Phase.
Eventually, though, the buzzing of that swarm fades. The endless demands finally quiet down. Invisible. It's just a single, quiet word, but man, it represents this incredibly cruel societal reality of aging as a female. After decades of camouflage, of fighting in the middle school trenches, of evading predators in the dark, and completely exhausting yourself juggling impossible demands, the reward is simply fading away. The loud, chaotic world suddenly begins to blur, and it just swallows you right into the background.
Now, there is a profound paradox in this stage. Losing your youth directly equates to losing your visibility. You fade into the background. You are finally no longer the target of predators, so that physical fear of walking alone at night actually begins to lift. But that safety comes at a pretty devastating cost. You are no longer valued by the pack, either. It really brings to mind the emotional melancholy of an old lioness separated from her pride at sunset, standing completely alone in the tall grass. The threat of the hunt is over, sure, but so is her relevance. It's a deep emotional isolation. It's walking through crowded city streets while people move entirely around you, as if you aren't even there.
We've tracked this journey from the bright lights of the delivery room all the way to the fading sunset of invisibility. It is a dark, heavy reality that our source material lays out so clearly. And all of this brings us to one final lingering thought. If survival is the baseline, how do we begin to actually live? I mean, when your entire life, your posture, your choices, your awareness has been conditioned by a high-stakes ecosystem of predators and wasp swarms, how do you finally break the cycle? It's a question that demands empathy, and it challenges every single one of us to rethink these deeply ingrained realities that we just walk past every single day. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the world around you.